the day on which Krishna appeared. And on the 2 days of Ekadashi, the 11th day after the new moon and the 11th day after the full moon. As far as charity is concerned, it is plain that charity should be given to the devotees of Krishna who are engaged in his devotional service to spread the Krishna philosophy or Krishna consciousness throughout the world. Krishna consciousness is a benediction to humanity. Lord Chaitanya was appreciated by Rupa Goswami as the most munificent man of charity because love of Krishna, which is very difficult to achieve, was distributed freely by him. So if one gives some amount of his money to persons involved in distributing Krishna consciousness, that charity given to spread Krishna consciousness is the greatest charity in the world. And if one worships as prescribed in the temples in India, there are always some statue, usually of Vishnu or Krishna. That is a chance to progress by offering worship and respect to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. For the beginners in devotional service to the Lord, temple worship is essential, and this is confirmed in the Vedic literature from the Shvetashvatara Upanishad 6:23. Yasya Devi Para Bhaktir Yatha Devi Tata Guru Tasyaite Katata Yarita Prakashante Mahatmana. One who has unflinching devotion for the Supreme Lord and is directed by the spiritual master, in whom he has similar unflinching faith, can see the Supreme Personality of Godhead by revelation. Okay, we're going to stop it right there and we'll say a few things, okay? And we'll just kind of keep an eye on the time. Maybe Kadamba, you can suggest when I should start to, narrow down and come to the point where we can leave some period for questions. Now, of the many verses in chapter 11, this one is quite highlighted. And the reason is because it is pointing Arjuna and any sincere seeker of the truth in the direction of being very focused in your devotional service. Undivided is key word here. And you know what it's like if you, like to get to this park where I am today. It was quite choppy, meaning that we went through a lot of stop signs, we went through stop lights and this and that. And, there's a lot of those in Toronto, probably less so in Windsor, Ontario, Canada, the earth. But it's nice we can just move right along and there's very little interruption. In fact, samadhi, the famous word that we hear that occurs and actually makes its appearance even in the Gita, is when it's uninterrupted, undivided trance or thought on the absolute. It's the end of the Ashtanga Yoga system. It's when there is no mixing of anything, such as mental speculation or rituals or anything. It's like constant thought on the absolute. This is what is meant by samadhi. It's like if you have all the dots and they all come together to form an actual line. The line may curve a little bit here and there, but there's just simply a constant flow. And let us look a little bit on the word that Prabhupada used, unalloyed devotional service. The word unalloyed came from when he was sitting at Boston Harbor back in 1965 in September. And there was a steel plant there, a steel company. And it had big letters on it, big, what you call it, labeling. And it said unalloyed steel. And there's the name of the company, Unalloyed Steel. So Prabhupada sat there and he contemplated on what this means. And if you actually look it up in your dictionary, you'll find that it means when it's not mixed up, it's pure steel. It's that, if you talk about pure gold, not mixed with any other metals. So devotional service is something that it's like that. When we talk about pure devotional service, there's no mixture of any other elements in there. It's just a fixation. It's something like what the gopis of Vrindavan were experiencing all the time, just having this constant thought of Krishna on their mind. Even though the gopis had other household duties, Krishna was just with them, just all the time there with them. And so that's very admirable, That's where the word unalloyed devotional service comes from. So if you're reading that in Prabhupada's books, you know that the origin of that has to do with Boston and Prabhupada sitting at the harbor waiting for the boat to take off to take him a little further to New York City. Let's look at some of the other phrases that are brought up here. Standing, Prabhupada translates standing before you. The idea is to go pratyakshabang. That means go directly to Krishna. You don't have to go around him. There doesn't have to be a need to explore other avenues of spirituality, such as, let's say, for instance, contemplating on the Brahman, which is the spiritual effulgence of the Lord, or not necessarily that you have to contemplate on Paramatma within the heart. That's called Paramatma realization. As you read in the first canto of the Bhagavatam, Brahmeti Paramatmeti Bhagavan iti Shabdite. So there are 3 levels of God realization. And the first one, it is possible. Some people can actually start with Brahman realization. That means seeing, appreciating the all-pervasive spiritual energy of God, that God is everywhere through an energetic power. So that's one way to see God. Another one is through the Paramatma. That's the next level of realization, where you appreciate the presence of God in the heart. Sarva Shichaham Ridi Sanivishto. That's in chapter 15, text 15. One of the famous verses that makes it very clear God is in the heart of all living entities. So God is there in a localized way. And if you're to look very deeply, and if you have the eyes to see, if you have enough love, you can appreciate that God is there in 4 arms in a Vishnu manifestation. So that is Paramatma realization. God is in all living beings present in a personal form, as opposed to an energy. Then finally, we have Bhagavan realization, which is what is being referred to here in the this verse, text 54. We're talking about Bhagavan. And that Bhagavan, by the way, is the word that is used to describe Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavan appears all over the place in the Gita. In fact, the word Krishna hardly appears, but it is implying the same person. If you could flip back 2 verses prior, Sri Bhagavan Uvacha, Sudur Darsham Idang Rupam. That is referring to God as a person. Maybe remote. We're talking about Paramatma being close to you in your heart. Bhagavan is presence can be felt very right here with you. And yet his actual existence is far away in his own abode. So what Krishna is saying here is that approach me in an undivided way. Do not be interrupted or disrupted, and see me as I am. Go directly to me through the practice of bhakti, because it's only through bhakti that God can be known. Bhaktyamam avijanati yavanyas chashmi tatvataha. That's in chapter 18 of the Gita. So it's by bhakti that God is understood. It's not by mental speculation. It's not by, let's say, any other methods, performing severe austerities. It's not by doing charity work necessarily. It's through the act of love that what is really important and what counts in the matter of being close to Krishna. I like the how Prabhupada also translates, he's talking about mysteries of my understanding. Krishna is mysterious. And even for the great devotees of the Lord who have been committed to him, you can never really figure him out because he's very complex. He's quite sophisticated. But the closest way to get to him is through this method of bhakti. Like there is no other way. Hello, Nasteva, 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 Gaptiranyata. And one of the direct methods in which to approach the Lord is through chanting Hare Krishna, of course. I thought it was interesting that Janmashtami is mentioned, and Janmashtami is one of our bigger festivals. It's just around the corner. It's a happy time. Well, yeah, sort of. I've been in temples where Janmashtami is going on, and everyone starts on a fast. It's oftentimes Janmashtami falls on the hot part of the month of the year. And I think in India, they are supposed to be a little bit of rain that always happens on Janmashtami. That's a good sign. What I've experienced on Janmashtami, not everybody's so good at fasting all day. And some people do the nirjal, which means don't even drink any water. This might not be a good prescription for everyone. Some people might get a little woozy. And I know one god sister of mine, she'll have blackouts if she doesn't eat or drink something every day. So anyways, you've got Janmashtami. It's a very interesting day, and people fast, as I mentioned, as we gave in detail prior. And then usually a lot of people haven't had sleep early enough because a lot of our devotees go to the Mangalarti at 4:30 from as far away as Brampton, this part of the, when they come to Toronto, they've had to get up at 2:30 or something like that. So then those of us who reside in the temple, it's very austere for us because you haven't had enough sleep, and also you're not eating, and it's also one of the hottest days of the year. And it's the day of the year when you have to work the hardest because you're getting all this feast, all this prasadam together. So I've seen sometimes people get a little cranky. You know, we say sometimes babies get grumpy and cranky, but I've seen adults get that way too. And if you can really hold your ground and say, I'm going through this little austerity because it's for the pleasure of the Lord, then you come out, it helps to build character, helps to build the heart, and helps to build character. And so Janmashtami, it's a good time from that perspective. And if you can avoid exploding on each other, that would be really good. That would be fantastic. We're going to be also embarking on Balaram's appearance day. Krishna has a brother who appeared before him, and Balaram represents strength. That's what we mean by the word Bala. Rama indicates someone who's having pleasure, and indeed, pleasure only really comes from within. If you have pleasure that's stimulant coming from the externals of the body, that is real pleasure, but it is temporary and doesn't last long. It has a short shelf life. So Balaram appeared, and it was all occurred in a very mystical way, from Vasudeva, and Vasudeva was simply meditating on Balaram like he did Krishna, and his thoughts were transmitted to the mind of his wife. In this case, it was the Rohini who actually bore Balaram, and there's a story about miscarriage. I won't get so much into the detail, but what is important is that when we chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, we're actually addressing Balaram in the Maha Mantra. We're saying Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. If somebody wants to pose the argument, well, Rama means Rama. Rama means Ramachandra. So Prabhupada basically compromises on this, and he helps us to accommodate different what seems to be conflicting ideas into one space. So first of all, Rama is God, and so is Balarama God. So there should be no conflict of interest there whatsoever. But you can also say Rama means Parashurama, and then we'll have use the same argument, say Parashurama, the wild warrior, but divine wild warrior, is also God, and so there's no difference between these manifestations of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We will definitely get strength by taking shelter of Balaram. And I know that when I was younger and living in the temple, everything was in the 70s and early 80s. We were just all starting this mission. We were so excited, and we were embarking on something really new that the world did not know about, except for a few immigrants that had come from India. People didn't know what was Krishna, what was Balaram, and so on. So to get ourselves established in the mission would mean building, it would mean painting, it would mean doing externals on your building, it would mean buying vehicles and getting shipments of books and stacking them into your van and traveling all over. It was very big. We used to do a lot of lifting, and when something was particularly heavy, a whole bunch of us would lift together and we say, Balaram! Balaram means you get this particular strength, physical and spiritual strength from this extra power. Of course, a lot of power comes from just sort of like uttering a war cry, or if you're doing martial arts, you make some move and you go, it gives you a little extra strength, a little bit extra fortification and solidarity. So I think Balaram is somebody we can really take shelter of. There are very few temples of Balaram in India, not as popular as Krishna, but we do have in some cases Krishna Balaram. And one of our best temples on the planet is in Vrindavan, and we have the Krishna Balaram Mandir. It rates only second in attendance of congregants coming there, pilgrims coming to what was the name of the other temple there in Vrindavan? Somebody will have to help me. I'll think about
Banke Bihari.
Banki Bihari, of course, yeah. The curtains open, the curtains close. So after Banki Bihari, Krishna Balaram is very popular. I think it just, when you go in there, it's packed. You feel like you're in a can of sardines or something like that. But it is a very special place. Sometimes people devotionally push you around a little bit, and we shouldn't be too offended. We call them love shoves. A love shove is somebody pushes you a little bit. It's out of love for wanting to have darshan of the absolute Lord. Yeah. Now, since we're talking about Balaram, Balaram made a major decision in his life. He's not going to get involved in this war. He wasn't there during the time when Krishna spoke the Bhagavad Gita. He decided this is a conflict of interest on different levels. Balaram had a very strong tie with Duryodhana as a guru disciple in terms of teaching the martial arts of club fighting. So you know what Balaram did? He actually decided not to fight, not to be engaged in the war whatsoever, but he went on a long walk. He went on a long walk, and he covered a lot of territory, and he went to many places of pilgrimage, which we call tirthas. And that's one big, let's say, should be a big objective in every devotee's life, to spend your vacation on a trip to holy places. I know one couple from Toronto, they celebrated their summer by stopping by at every single temple in North America. They started from Toronto, they made their way west in Canada, and then they went south on the west coast, and they stopped, went to LA, and then came across. I think they did a little crisscrossing as well, and they just went to every temple. In this way, they got Krishna's mercy. And that surely is an act of love or bhakti. Also, where Kurukshetra, one of the most auspicious places in the world where the Gita was spoken, is it's north of Delhi, and it's a place of pilgrimage merely because of the fact that many sacrifices, yajnas, were executed there, and there's sacred rivers, at least 3 sacred rivers that kind of like map off a triangle of sacred, and that's where Kurukshetra is. So everything is very auspicious about the Gita, the place where it was spoken, the place where the battle was fought, the place where the Lord personally stood, and where his very receptive and inquisitive devotee sat and stood, for a little while. For the most part, Arjuna sat. He sat on the chariot. He was standing initially, but he was feeling a little bit, let's say, depressed. And for that, you sit down. I'm sure you all have gone through that kind of an experience when you don't feel so good, uppity up, as we say. Maybe you feel a little bit challenged and confused. So usually you sort of slump down into a couch or something like that, or into a lawn chair to contemplate a little more deeply, and maybe you'll even doze off and wake up after a little bit of what Prabhupada used to call a snap, and hopefully become a little brighter in your thoughts. So it's a nice verse, and I would ask if you could all think about some little bit of homework here by reading the rest of the purport. There's quotations from the Gopal Tapani and also the Brahma Samhita, the famous verse. And I've got some people who are assaulting me here in the park. So those are some points. Kadamba, can you let me know about the time factor?
It's about 11:10, Maharaj. So
11:10. Okay. Great. So we'll just wrap up, and we'll leave some period for your questions, and then we'll move along. So just again, I want to say that each chapter of the Gita has some prize verses, and chapter 11, of course, has a lot of descriptions of a kind of a phantasmagoria, a media presentation by the Supreme Lord of himself. And so that's what many of the verses are layered with, descriptions of multiple imagery. And yet this is one verse that we can highlight that stands out in the whole chapter, where Krishna says, it's only by devotional service that's pure that I can be known. And so as I'm standing before you, try to understand me directly. You don't have to go through any other process. You don't have to go beyond him. Some commentators on Bhagavad Gita says, you don't have to go to Krishna directly, you go beyond him. What does that mean, beyond him? There is no beyond. What does it mean? You jump over him? So, sorry, I must have missed you. Somebody was trying to call me. It is a very direct approach. And if I can just finish off by asking you to go to chapter 9 right now for a minute. Flip your pages or look at your screen. And we're going to chapter 9. And text number 2. And here it is. Rajavidya Rajaguyam Pavitram Idam Uttamam Pratyaksha Vagamang Dharmyam Susukam Kartum Avyayam. This knowledge is the king of education, the most secret of all secrets. It is the purest knowledge, and because it gives direct perception of the self by realization, it is the perfection of religion. It is everlasting and it is joyfully performed. So I just want to highlight the direct perception, which was mentioned earlier on with our verse today. Direct perception means pratyakshabhagamang dharmyam. And also the other point I'd want to bring up is that in the spirit of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, all services are done with great joy. So last line there, susukam karatum avyayam. Spiritual practices are happily executed. They're joyful. It's fun. That's one. And so I might have mentioned to this group, we consider ourselves not fanatics, but fun addicts. We have fun. We sing, we dance, we eat nice food, and we exchange beautiful words that are philosophical. And that's what we do. When we come together, that's what we are up to doing. So thank you very much. And if we have any questions or comments, we can do that. And then I'll have to jump over to our little yoga section of the El Dorado Park here. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you so much. It's a wonderful talk, Maharaj. And I really like that fanatic, Maharaj.
Right.
First time I'm hearing that.
Yeah. I mentioned that once to Radhanath Swami. I think some of you are initiated by Radhanath Swami, right? Am I correct? Anyways, I mentioned that to one in once a prashadam in Tirupati. And I said, well, we're not fanatics. There's nothing worse than being fanatical, but we're fun addicts. And when I mentioned that, he just cracked up so much. He was laughing so hard. And I also mentioned another thing that I said, like a play on words. When we talk about the nature of the material world, it's horrible. You know? It's not horrible. It's horrible. But if we actually take to the process of bhakti, then we will experience less horrific experiences. Like even the displays in the 11th chapter are somewhat horrific. You know, Arjuna was saying Haribol in the beginning, you can say, but then in the end it was horrible. It's horrible. I don't want to see this anymore. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Maharaj. Maharaj, I think Dr. Rajan has a question.
Okay.
I think I also love that for the fanatic. I also enjoyed that one, the cool play of words.
Oh, yeah.
You also made some interesting points, Guruji, today. The linking Sri Rama to Balarama and Parasurama. I really liked that type of going beyond simple things, and I really enjoyed. And did you have any of those comparison to other avatars to Krishna?
No, but what I would like to say, not offhand, what I would like to say is that this is where the proper application of Achincha Beda Beda Tattva can be, realized. You're saying that God is one, but God is many, and so through this nomenclature, the word Ram merely ties in these different personalities together, and we have such a big Vedic family. People of other traditions, they just want to settle, give me one image, one God, one name, and then they're happy. But we appreciate that God is a little more complex, and God isn't just one way, not a flat cardboard character. And therefore we have different names to describe his different qualities. And so that's important. But specifically because Rama is found in our most enlightened mantra, right? The great mantra of deliverance, Maha Mantra. Therefore, the name, there's only 3 words that you can play with there. And so Ram is the major feature there in regards to how you can stretch it a little bit. So somebody doesn't like Ram so much, but meaning Balaram, but they like Ramachandra more. Okay, keep him in there. That can be your meditation, Ramachandra. Fine, no problem. No problem. No. It's a one but different. It's unity and diversity. Mhm. Thank you.
Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you.
Is there anything else?
Any other devotees have any questions or reflections from the class?
Yeah, my remark is that I'm right next to the Credit River, and it's a real clean river that dumps into Lake Ontario, and that's where I am. And the place is full of people from that have come from India, and likewise that part of the world.
Yes, Maharaj.
You see very few skin-colored people of any other tone but from India. So I feel at home myself. Yeah. Okay, so I guess that's it then. We'll.
Maharaj, sorry, Maharaj.
Yes.
Himangopi has something to say. Himangopi, proceed.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Maharaj, for an
Yes.
always. Maharaj, I have this question that we usually hear and we see in our life that familiarity is not very good in a sense. Even among the family members, when we are all devotees, we know the faults and all the negatives and the positives of a person, and then the relationship is always like not like like this, but focuses on the other aspect. But when that extends to our devotional family too, like when we start knowing more about devotees, or then the aparad is more in the head, can you help me? How do I come out of this mentality, please?
Well, I think we should first of all acknowledge the fact that of the 10 restrictions on chanting, the first one that's at the top of the list, it advises that don't be critical of others, especially those who are on the devotional path. It's dangerous because it's called a hati mata offense. Hati refers to elephant. So it's a big offense if we get critical of other devotees. The real practice of Vaishnavas is to bring about the, think of the good, the positive aspect of an individual instead of being critical of an individual. So that's what's going to allow you to blossom, to be like a bhakti blossom, is when we see the good in somebody, because everybody has it. Everybody has it. Like even Kamsa, he's thinking about killing the baby, the firstborn, and he looks at the baby, and his heart melts a little bit, and he decides not to kill the baby until his nasty friends come along and said, "You did the wrong thing." So it is. I think we should look at the long term of being negative towards others, is that it's about the worst scenario that you can go through, is to be critical of others. Yet we should always appreciate that anybody's doing some devotional service. They're making an effort. If you're dirty, you've worked in the field all day, and then you're in the shower, and somebody comes midway into the washroom and says, "Oh, you're so dirty." But, yeah, but I am taking my shower. I'm midway through getting clean. So I think we should always appreciate. A Vaishnava is somebody who just looks at the good in others and spends less time on what might be negative. So we have to look at the cup which is half full and not half empty. And familiarity breeds contempt. That's true. Once in a while, you might have to just step aside and separate for a little bit and go for a little walk. And then when you come back, you can appreciate the person a little bit more that you're familiar with. Familiarity breeds contempt, right? So we always have to respect that Krishna's in the heart of all, even wrongdoers. We have to appreciate Krishna's in there, even that that mountain lion that wants to come and eat you, when you're camping in the forest. He's that mountain lion has got Krishna in his heart. It's a little hard to see it that way. Try to always look forward and be very progressive in your thoughts in this matter. Just see in the good in others. Be blind for what's negative. Be positive for what's pure. Look to the purity. When you look at the moon, you can see there's marks on it. It's not like a clear ball, like a full moon. It's got markings on it. But you appreciate the fact that it's so luminescent. It's, emitting so much light and power. So I think the example of the moon is the best. Don't look at the little pot marks that are on the moon, but look what it's able to do, to cast so much lightness and brightness in the middle of the night. All right.
Thank you, Maharaj. I'll try my best to follow in the
Oh, yeah.
your blessings.
We have to try. That's what a Vaishnava is, one who tries. All right. Our time is up, I think.
Maharaj, looks like these are the questions we have. Thank you so much, Maharaj. We're very, very grateful to you.
Thank you so much. And you have a very nice time the rest of the summer. And I guess we're going to see you again in September, unless
Yes,
if something else is arranged. All right. Thank you,
Yes,
everybody.
Thank you, Maharaj. Thank
Hare
you so
Krishna.
much.
Please accept
Hare
my
Krishna.
obeisance. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhudevata patitanam bhavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Hi, Hari Bol, Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna. Holiness Bhaktimarga Maharaj ki jai.
Hari Bol.
Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you so much.
Jai, jai.
Hare Krishna devotees, thank you all so much. We'll again come back next week for another wonderful verse from Bhagavad Gita. You all have a wonderful week and the weekend too. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Good night.
Hare Krishna.